Hi cuties, it's time to be controversial again. I don't know what is fueling such rage in me lately, but it's not really rage. It's just annoyance. Today we're going to talk about 5 books, series / authors that I am absolutely so sick of hearing about, but also 5 books that I think deserve more hype, along with some honorable mentions because it's me and I can't shut up about books. Yeah. I watch a lot of other booktubers and there are just some books that everyone talks about and I'm just sick of it. I'm so tired of these books / authors that if I hear their name one more time, I'm gonna lose it. It's okay if you disagree. If you like these books or these authors, that's fine. It's opinions. These are my opinions and I have a YouTube channel where I can say them. I just feel like these books get talked about so much, but they're not really worth the hype. Granted, some of these I don't know because I haven't read them yet, but I am just tired of the overhyping because when things get overhyped, I just lose interest in them, and that's a me problem. So these are all kind of in ranking order of the ones that I'm okay with hearing about, but still I'd rather not, to I really don't want to hear this name ever again in my life. Number 5 is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've heard a lot about it. Nothing about this book actually intrigues me because it's apparently written like a big interview with this 70s band, and culture then I'm just not into. Everybody raves about it, but I feel like it's just not going to be a book I want to read, and I don't really understand the hype around it because it's an era that glorifies, I mean, we still glorify this a lot, of like sex and drugs and rock and roll kind of thing. And while I love rock and roll bands and stuff, the 70s is a time period I can't really take. I can't actually watch movies made in the 70s, and it's a really silly reason, and my family makes fun of me for this, but like everyone in the 70s, in 70s movies, are hairy and sweaty, and I'm like, I feel the need to shower when I watch a movie set or made in the 1970s. I don't like it. I just don't like it, okay? It's just an aesthetic thing. I don't have the capacity to like. Even with the way that this cover is for Daisy Jones and the Six, it's kind of sets me off on thinking I know exactly what's in this book and I don't want to partake in that. And it could be a really good book and maybe someday I'll read it. I'm just so tired of hearing about it. I'm also kind of tired of 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is by the same author, but I feel like now that Daisy Jones and the Six gets a lot more hype than 7 Husbands does, and I do want to read 7 Husbands. It did sound like an interesting book, but again, there's just so much hype, and that hype is kind of killing it for me. Number 4, this is not a new release, but it's come back into the culture because of the movies, and that is It by Stephen King. I have read it at a time I should not have read it, and I have serious issues with this book, especially that scene. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. It's not in any of the movies, it's not in the old miniseries for it, and there's a reason for it, because it's really, really wrong. I want to shield people from having to read it, and I didn't really appreciate Stephen King's defense of said scene, because he's defending it as like, oh, that's just what it was. And the kids in this story are very young, and I don't see how this would come about. I don't even have the real words to explain my rage at this, and it's also kind of one of the reasons I don't really like reading Stephen King books, because 1, I'm not really into the horror genre, 2, this. There's so many things in this that are now being defended, and I'm like, why? I don't agree with the defense of this. I think it was a really bad defense. So for those of you who don't know, in the end of the book, after it's been defeated, the kids are still lost in the sewers. The way that they decide to find their way out is that they all need to be connected again. And their method for this is for everybody to bang Beverly. One by one, they all get to have sex with Beverly. Beverly, who was abused by her father and now is going to be this... I don't have words for this. It made me so upset, and I can't even believe that it is such a... the book It is such a big thing when this scene exists in it, and no one's talking about it. No one has said anything about it. And that's why I don't believe people when they say they've read the book and they love it so much, and then they talk about the movie. I feel like you've only watched the movie because you're ignoring this extremely terrible scene. Using this as a defense for how they're all together, like, that's bullshit. I'm sorry. It's absolute BS. How is it okay? How is no one talking about this? It's such a problem. I can't believe that Beverly has to go through this, and as if it's okay that every single boy in her group of friends now has to screw her just so that they can find their way out of the sewers. That makes no sense whatsoever, and the defense of it is even worse. That's just how it was. No! No, no, no. No. I disagree entirely. No. Anyway, I'd really like to not hear about it anymore. That's what I'm saying. Okay, number 3, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I know there are a lot of fans out there. It's a really big series. I have no desire to read it because it is a really big series. It seems very, it just seems like too much for me. And I have heard a lot of like other problematic things about it, but I don't know because I have not read it. But because of those things that I have heard, it's made it go down on that list of I don't really have an interest in reading this book. Nothing about the story really strikes me as something, I don't know, different or really so much enticing for me that I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm really tired of it. I don't know. I mean, it's probably okay, but I think I have other better books that I want to be reading or listening or talking about than Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass. Granted, other books by her I am interested in. I have ACOTAR still on my TBR, and she's coming out with a 4th book for that series, for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Sorry, I used the acronym there. And then Crescent City does seem intriguing. It's her new adult fantasy that everybody is talking about. Granted, the hype of that is also kind of getting to me a little bit. I'm just kind of tired. I'm tired of hearing about Throne of Glass and the entire series, especially I know Kingdom of Ash just came out, and that's the finale, I think, of the series. So hopefully the hype starts to die down, but just that one. Not really huge complaints because I haven't read it, but from what I've heard, not really into it. Number 2, Twilight. Okay, specifically Midnight Sun. Stephanie Meyer is coming out with a new Twilight book, which is Twilight told from Edward's perspective. Why is Twilight still allowed? I don't understand. Didn't we all collectively agree that it was very problematic and Edward and Bella's relationship is super abusive and controlling and just really toxic? Didn't we all agree on that? Did I miss something where suddenly it's allowed again? And here's the thing. I don't like the trend of bashing Twilight because it's Twilight. I used to do that, and I've learned and grown. I do appreciate Twilight for what it did for YA and what it did for lots of new readers coming in to read and stuff. Twilight did some good there. Do I think it's a good series? No. Did I read the entire series? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Not really. It was okay. Very easy to point out the points that I'm like, that's not cool, that's really creepy, that's very toxic, and just not enjoying it. I think Stephanie Meyer missed out on good characters that she had in the background that would have been way more interesting to read about, and she chose the boring ones, the bad toxic ones, to be the focus. And so here's the thing. Bella herself is not such a bad character. She is the quintessential, I'm not like other girls, boys all love me even though I'm awkward, and she is that quintessential character, which is not a fun trope to deal with. However, she has moments where she has a brain and she has these strong moments and stuff that I could appreciate in it. There were good parts of Twilight, but the relationship is definitely not one of them. She's a very emotional teenager without really having a lot of outward emotions. She's an internal creature, which is the whole thing about her superpower being within her mind. All right, I will give her that. However, why do we need a new book from Edward's perspective? Because I don't want to learn about this super toxic, controlling man. I don't want to learn anything about that. You're gone, Edward. I'm done with that. It's like let's have a perspective of nice guys finish last Jacob. I don't want to read a book about that. I don't need to. We see that already in our lives out here. All the whiny boys out there that are like, woe is me, she'll never love me, or the super controlling men that are controlling their girlfriends and their wives. I don't want to learn about that perspective. And I feel like Midnight Sun will just justify every wrong that Edward did. And everyone is so excited about it. And I'm like, why? Why? I'm very confusion right now. I don't want to hear any more about Midnight Sun. I'm good. Can we read something else? Okay, the final one that I am absolutely sick of hearing about is literally anything by Cassandra Clare. I hated Mortal Instruments. I have not read anything else by her. It's all within the same universe and whatever. Write what makes you money, I guess. But as Cassandra Clare as a person, I do not like very much. You can do your own research into the past issues. There was issues with plagiarism, but I think that was kind of resolved. Her tokenism of gays especially in Mortal Instruments, was not good. The incest plot was absolutely horrendous, especially when you understand that she originally wanted to make that canon. Nope. I don't like Cassandra Clare. I don't like it. I am tired of hearing her name. I'm tired of hearing about the books. I'm really, really sick of it. I'm just so sick of hearing it. And so many booktubers just gush over her. And I'm like, do you realize? I don't know. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you guys enjoy her books and stuff. I cannot do it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I don't think she needs any more hype whatsoever. Now I've given all the books that I hate another platform to be heard about. Anyway, let's talk about books that I think need more hype or need more readers because they were excellent in my opinion. And for once in my life, I will not mention who I always mention because then I realized I was about to mention her. But I do think she's amazing and you should read her books. But I'm going to talk about some other ones that I think need some more love. In place number 5, I have The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. I absolutely loved this book. You have such a good, strong main character that is unique. You have this unique world and unique concept of zombies, but also kind of magic and a little bit of fairies and stuff. And we go on this awesome journey and it's so good. I want more. I want more so much. You guys need to read The Bone Houses. You need to see The Bone Goat, guys. Bone Goat. Bone Goat. I loved it so much. You guys should check it out. Emily Lloyd Jones, I'm really excited to read more from her. I have another one of her books on my TBR. I can't wait to read more. I can't wait to see what else she comes up with. Read her books, guys. Read them. Number 4 is the Strange House series by Kathleen Baldwin. This series is so freaking cute. It's not like absolutely epic or anything, but if you need a really cute romantic historical fiction with lady spies and alternative history and girls being amazing while also being feminine and being independent and stuff, I love this series. I absolutely adore it. I especially love the second book, Exile for Dreamers. That's my favorite. I just read the new book, Harbor for the Nightingale, earlier this year, and it's so fun. It's so good. I just love it. I do wish there was more representation, especially LGBT representation. And they're all straight stories. I was hoping one of the girls was at least gonna be bi, but it doesn't look that way. But it's still a really good series, and it just warms my heart. And it's a series that sometimes when I'm down, I gotta go back to Exile for Dreamers and make myself happy, okay? Loved it. I loved it. You should read it too. Number 3, a book, these are books I did not expect to love so much, but that is The Bells by Donielle Clayton. It deals with the topic of beauty, and I was really, really worried about it because the characters of The Bells are these women who have the power of beauty, and they can shape and change people to look more like a human would. Beauty is such high currency basically in this. I was really worried what message the book was saying, but it's great. It has a way better message than I was fearing, and I ended up really loving it. I love the twists that happen in this story. I'm excited. I know we're gonna get a 3rd one apparently. I don't know when it's coming out. I hope it comes out soon. If it never does, we at least have a really solid duology. So it could just end that way and be fine, but I don't think it will. I think there is going to be a 3rd, and I can't wait for it. It's so interesting. The audiobook especially is really, really well done. Rosie Jones, I believe, is the narrator, and I love her voice. She just does such a good job, especially with all the different characters. It's so good. Number 2 is any of the Lady Janie's books. So we have My Lady Jane and My Plain Jane, and soon coming out, well actually it's already out, but soon coming to me because I pre-ordered it, is My Calamity Jane. And I'm in love with these books. They are so different than what I thought they would be. They're kind of satirical with their take on history. They're a little fantastical. So the first book deals with shapeshifters in the time of Lady Jane Grey and her time as queen. If you don't know that history, don't worry. You'll learn it, but also it'll be bastardized because that's what they do. In My Plain Jane, we have the story of Jane Eyre, and we have some more ghosty paranormal stuff going on with that one. But the humor in these books is so good. I literally laughed out loud. I don't normally do that with books, but I was cackling while listening to these books. They're so good. Check them out. Definitely think everybody would appreciate this. I cannot wait to read My Calamity Jane, and they're coming out with a Mary series, and we're gonna go back into the world of My Lady Jane with Mary, Queen of Scots, who was a character in it, and I'm so excited. I want more people talking about these series because it's so good. And finally, this book I actually have with me. This is a duology I just finished this month, but that is, and this month being June, by the way. I don't know if you're seeing this in June or July, but I filmed this in June. But that is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling, followed by This Coven Won't Break. Oh my God. These books are so good. If you want some great witches, some really great representation in here for LGBT, we have Hannah, who is a lesbian. Veronica, I believe, is also a lesbian. And we have Morgan, who is bisexual. We have a trans male character in this as well. In this one, we kind of meet a genderqueer, but very briefly. But it is so good and adorable while being emotional and being magical. It's a whole new mythology with magic and stuff, and it's so good. It makes you really question like who done it kind of thing, because it's a bit of a mystery with it, and I love this so much. More people need to be talking about these books because they are so good. Okay, I love this. I really love the character of Alice that we meet in this one, and I really would love for Isabel Sterling to continue this series, not necessarily with Hannah and Morgan, because I think they've had a really good story, although I would love to see them like go to college and stuff, but I really want to see more of Alice and more expansion, especially with Gemma. I think Gemma deserves more because of that ending. And I think this easily could expand into more, but I believe it is just a duology. I don't think Isabel Sterling is writing another one. She is writing a prequel. I think it might already be out, but the prequel I'm not as interested in because we did get a lot of what the story was before These Witches Don't Burn in This Coven Won't Break. So this. All right, really quickly, honorable mentions that maybe some of them have a little bit more hype, but I still think they deserve more. and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Hands down deserves so much more hype than I think it's been getting. It's so good. It's 1920s. It's got a lot of great representation both in POC and LGBT rep. Kind of ghost hunting, kind of superheroes. It's very mystical, magical. It's in a league of its own, and it's just so, so good. You guys should check it out. Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I did not expect to love this as much as I did, but I definitely think it's something that, again, when you're kind of feeling slumpy and you need something to pick you up, check these books out. They're amazing. They're so fun. So, so fun. If you're missing that pirate vibe that you don't see too much in books, this will help you out. Three Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. I feel like it had a bit of hype when it first came out, but people lost it because the first book does have a fairly slow build, but the entire series as a whole is so good that I think it deserves a little bit more hype. It deserves a little bit more love. The sisters are just absolutely great. I think they're all super unique, and I would love for this book to get a lot more love, this series to get a lot more love than it has. Trust me when I say this, the first book, it is a little slow to build because there's a lot of world building to get through. But once it gets going, it goes and it don't stop. And finally, surprisingly, I'm putting this on my list, but that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I feel like the first book got so much hype, but then the second book came out and it was like, here it is. It's out. Read it. And that's it. I didn't really hear a lot of people talking about it. I loved the second book. I thought it was such an interesting expansion. I'm really devastated by the cliffhanger, and I don't know how I can wait for the next one. I love it, and I think it's so good, and especially for promoting really good culture for POC representation, because it's set completely based in, I believe, African mythology with Orisha, and it's like there are 0 white people in this entire series, and that's why I think it's great to have this representation in fantasy that doesn't really have that. Like the fantasy genre is a white genre, and having a book that not only has POC characters but is completely POC characters is amazing. Like not even Black Panther did that, because you still had the white characters in it. This one, it's its own fantasy world that makes complete sense. And I just love it. I love it so much. I love the characters in it so, so much. We get such a wide berth of characters, wide berth of magic systems. It's so different than anything that I've read that it deserves way more hype, especially now when we need to be promoting a lot more Black authors and Black stories and stuff. If you want fantasy, if sometimes hard-hitting contemporaries is just too much, you need a fantasy, but fantasy doesn't provide that very much. Here's one. Take this one. It's good. Those are my honorable mentions. Those are the books that I am sick of hearing about and think that they deserve way more hype. So what do you guys think? What books are you guys sick of hearing about? What books do you think need way more hype in this world? Put them down below. I will definitely check them out. I'm always expanding my TBR because it's never ending. If you guys like this video, check out my Ko-fi page and you can support me as a content creator over there. And if you have any further questions or comments, leave them down below or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. And I'll see you next time, cuties. Bye. I'm like, I feel like you've only read the movie. Or read the movie? Never ending TBR. Oh my God, will I ever finish?